Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over the Astrologian ability preview that we got from the job action trailer for Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Stormblood. Now keep in mind any of this information, both visual and numerical, is coming out of the live letter number 36 and is completely subject to change until June 16th rolls around. That would be early access. Now, I've already done my White Mage and Scholar videos. If you haven't seen those yet, be sure to check them out. And of the three healers, I feel like we were able to more clearly see Astrologian and how it is going to perform in Stormblood. Now, the first thing that I'm visually impressed by Astrologian is its gauge. Now, every job got some sort of user interface. For some jobs, it's new to the job, or some jobs it's keeping track of the old things they have. For Astrologians, it keeps track of four things. First, it keeps track of the card you have currently drawn and the 30-second timer you have left to decide whether you want to spread it, royal road it, or do a new action that we actually see in the trailer. It lets you know which card that you actually have spread and saved for later, and one of the more important things is it lets you know the effect that you currently have royal roaded. We see in this footage in particular, when they do one of their other new skills, that it says 200%, letting you know that the next card that you actually place on a target will have 200% of its current effect. This is very important because a lot of people get lost whenever they're trying to learn all the different cards, the 6 cards that the Astrologians have in their deck. So it's a much clearer indication of what it is they're going to be doing with those royal roads. Now, one of the new mechanics we see here is the final piece of the Astrologian gauge, and that is the set on the right. Now, in the benchmark trailer, we noticed that Astrologian used some sort of new skill, and we saw 2 cards that are already part of their lore being pulled, the Lord and the Lady. Now, in the benchmark trailer, we saw that they used the Lord on the enemy, and the effect is still currently unknown. We don't know if it's straight up damage or a debuff, but the Lord itself was actually used on enemies. Here we also get to see the Lady used, and not only that, but we see that they took a card that they drew and then turned it into the Lady. So we don't know if that means that like 3 cards become the Lady, 3 cards become the Lord. We don't know if it's random whether or not you get the Lady or the Lord, like it's random which of the 6 cards you actually get. But apparently you can sacrifice a drawn card to pull either the Lord or the Lady. Just the specifics are the things we need to get. The Lady here is also cast on an ally. For me, it looks like it's a very Cure-esque animation. We see it after he or she draws the bowl, then gets the sort of wing-looking thing, and then we see that effect. It's very reminiscent of a heel-looking animation, but it may have some other effect as well. The next most visually impressive thing here we have is this sort of almost like mini galaxy that's placed on the field. This is just a wonderful thing to look at. So you see it starts kind of small, and as the video extends or keeps going, it starts to get larger and larger. You can clearly see the AoE effect or the range of the AoE effect that it's having. So it could provide some sort of buff, maybe almost like a placed card on the field. But that would be kind of weird if it was a placed card on the field, because I just realized that she doesn't actually have a card like spread or anything like that. But we'll just leave it out since we don't actually know what it does. But it grows over time, and then by the end of the footage, it actually just explodes. Whether it's a heal or damage is unknown, or if it's one of the effects and maybe it's a random effect, who knows. But visually, it's so satisfying to look at, and considering how much time it lasts, it seems like it's a very predictive ability. Like, you know something's going to happen in X amount of time, or you know that you need this effect on the field for X amount of time. You'll use it in advance, and then as it grows and eventually explodes, I'd assume you'd want that explosion to be timed in some way. Here it just wears off, but considering how long it takes for us to see a spell effect that appears to be doing something, I'd have to imagine that this is something you'll use very far in advance in order to prepare for something in the future. That's pretty in line with the way Astrologian kind of works. You usually, you save cards and you draw cards and you try to use them all in the right scenarios, and this seems to be going further in both their actual job lore and sort of the theme of the way the job functions as it is. Now we see the Astrologian hard casting ability and instant casting ability. If I had to wager a guess based on the way all the other, like the White Mage and the Scholar job videos actually went, I'd have to imagine that that's Malefic 3. We've seen that Stone 4 exists. We've seen what looks to be a Broil 2 from Scholar, so it makes sense for Malefic 2 to get an upgrade to Malefic 3 as well. The other ability, I think that's the Combust 2 animation, and considering they said they were consolidating dots and stuff as well, things like Arrow 1 and 2 two got combined. I wouldn't be surprised if Astrologian just has Combust 2 now and doesn't have Combust 1 anymore, meaning you only have one dot to really maintain as your damaging part of the job. The big ability we have, though, is the finale. Astrologian's final ability is very clear what it does. It draws a card, it spreads a card, it gives you a Royal Road effect, and it pulls, I'd assume, either the Lord or the Lady. Basically, they use this final skill and all of their Astrologian gauges fill. It's not clear if it's entirely predictable, but considering the way that Astrologian has always been very random, we have to assume that all of those effects are also random, but it basically lets you just pull everything all at once. It's pretty crazy. The only thing I kind of was hoping we'd see for Astro is the ability to pick a card before the start of a fight, and we don't see anything like that in this video. Let's be honest, we'd all just pick the balance. In almost every scenario, people would just pick the balance, but we don't know if the balance is as strong as it was. We don't know if it's had any of its values reverted or changed or the effects of the individual cards, but we can see that at least one of the Royal Road effects is the same, as well as the card names remaining mostly the same, plus the two new cards that we actually have. I feel like of the three healers, of the job abilities we saw, this one felt like it had most sort of come to terms with its identity. Scholar has always been a great overall job, so when we saw that job action trailer and we saw the fairy tethering and the gauge, it didn't feel less scholarly, but it also didn't feel like, wow, I'm really excited seeing this stuff. When we saw the White Mage stuff, you can't even tell what's actually even happening in that video, minus gaining a Lily and, you know, whatever else they told us about the pure healer thing. But when you see Astro, you see such clearly defined traits. A galaxy that you place on the field, the cards and the new cards that were already part of the lore but are now part of the gameplay as well. It seems so much better identified than the other healers, and I really hope that the identity of the other healers comes through when we learn more about their actual abilities, because Astro visually already has that mastered. On that note, though, we're going to have to stop the video there. Glad to have all the healers out of the way. Let's do the tanks next. But anyway, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for all the latest information, speculation, whatever it is you're looking for. I got you covered here regarding Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood. I'll see you guys in the next video, and until then, take care.